Kirk Bohls of the Houston Chronicle, Hall of Fame writer, joins us. Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina. Paul's out till Wednesday. Craig Smoke, I'm David Smoke, 365 Sports. Kirk, my phone is the weirdest thing. I did not get your text, but thank you for texting again. Sorry for the delay, and for also appreciate your patience. So what's the last 36 or so hours been like for you since you had that story in the Chronicle?
Well, it's been interesting. I'll put it that way. I didn't expect it to ignite a furor like it has. And I really don't understand why some Longhorn fans think it's such a negative story. Like, how dare you say my school is so rich, it's paying more than anybody in the country, So I don't really get that when they are just following protocol and the rules of the land, such as they are. And I'd be the first to admit, in this climate that we're dealing with, Smoke, it's such a fluid number. My source even said it can change from one day to the next because you don't know who might land in your lap that you might have to pay for.
Kirk, I think the school who's trotting out the orange Lamborghinis for these recruiting events and doing all these things, getting worried about people talking about their money, is very strange. We brought this up a couple times now. I think it's just the conditioning people have had for decades, right, of this being so taboo. And now, even though it's clearly 100% legal and there really shouldn't be a big to-do about it, you are. I think people just still feel like maybe it's kind of dirty for some reason.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is the perception, and it kind of goes back to when Nick Saban went off on Jimbo Fisher and all but accused him of trying to buy his team. Well, everybody's trying to buy a team now. If you're not buying a team, you're probably going 2-10 each year because that's the price of doing business now. But I don't know. It is kind of exasperating because a lot of people made a lot of Ohio State spending over $20 million, and they end up winning a national championship. And that number was documented by Ross Bork, the new AD, used to be at A&M. Mm-hmm. So he was the one that kind of put that $20 million out there, and I don't think he was embarrassed to put it out there. So, and maybe UT doesn't want it because they don't want the spotlight. And even though there aren't any rules anymore, guys, as we all know, is that, the perception, like we just talked about earlier, is such that it just doesn't feel like it ought to be because it's not the game we grew up watching and covering.
Is there sometimes for a school that is like just rolling across athletics, they have all the money that they're going to be able to do as much as they can possibly do, and then on top of that, they're in a great run? Is there some that it's kind of what Craig said or you said, but they kind of like to say they have everything, but I'm not so sure we want to think that we're the ones that we have everything we can buy it. The same kind of thing, because it seemed like UT fans love to talk about how powerful they are, or the university, right. Excuse me, but then they get a little bit sensitive when you do.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, Smokey. It really is. And Craig, is you look at last year, the fiscal year, 2024. You know how much money, how much revenue Texas athletics brought in? It was $332 million, number one in the nation. And I didn't hear one person say or one tweet that said, "Oh my God, this is awful. This is just awful that we're making $332 million." And the year before, guys, their revenue was $239.2 million. So it went up over $100 million in 1 year, and they weren't even getting a full share from the SEC yet, like they will this year. So these numbers are just staggering, and they kind of blow our mind just because we're trying to get our brains around all this, and it's a little bit unsavory. But is it more unsavory than JT Finley, the quarterback, looking at his sixth school, or Cam Rising maybe coming back after being at Texas in 2018, or Nico Amaliava, I butchered the name, I'm sorry, at Tennessee, signing a deal with Tennessee while he's in high school? I mean, this is the landscape now, and there aren't any Cinderellas. There aren't any periods-driven snow people out there, and everybody's trying to get a grasp on this. But yeah, Texas never apologized for being the biggest brand in college athletics, which it well might be. But they're really not doing anything different than the Ohio States and Georgias, to be honest.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Right.
And I'm sure that when the Ohio State number came out last year, there's probably, oh, look at that. You know, it's so.
No, it was a constant talking point the entire season with them. Yeah.
So you've seen them, UT, have unbelievable run when DeLoss Dodge was there and others, but then they went through what was it, Kirk, maybe a decade of like wandering through wilderness or whatever, this cactus in the sand. Where are they now, in your opinion? They're going to win another Director's Cup, whatever that's called. Where are they right now with what Del Conte and company have built?
Do you remember DeLoss Dodge's famous quote? He told me, "We don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
We are the Joneses."
Mm-hmm.
They are the Joneses. So they don't apologize for anything. And really, people kind of perceive that as the golden era when Mac Brown was here and Rick Barnes was here and Augie Garita was here. And they were either winning or competing for national championships in their sports. Well, they're kind of making a mockery of that golden era because they're racing past that standard. Did you guys know that, 9 Longhorn sports have been ranked number 1 in the country this school year? 9. How many Division I programs have never had a team ranked number 1? And this has happened in the same school year. And they've already won, I think it's 7 SEC, either regular season or postseason championships. And I think Florida has a record with 11, Arkansas with 10. And baseball's sitting here number 1, running away with the SEC baseball. Softball's away distant number 3. Can't beat Oklahoma. But, men's golf, men's tennis, just run down the list of all these other ones that are national contenders. And that's what Chris Del Conte expects. And that's why he hires only elite coaches. And if you're not going to be elite and you're not going to perform and produce like an elite coach, well, you're going to be hitting the pavement pretty soon, according to Del Conte.
All right. Well, I have a question to wrap it up with you, Kirk. And again, thanks for the patience of us getting back with you.
You bet.
They in the summer of 21, when Brent Zerneman had the story that Texas and OU were bolting, and I mean, like it was like WTF what, like that. And at the time, you're like, OU's going to be okay. You kind of knew Texas eventually would get better, but it wasn't like there was no proof. Why have they been able to be better earlier than everyone? And I think most everyone thought when they joined, or the story popped that they were joining the SEC. Was it the timing of NIL and other things too? How has this happened as quickly as it has?
Smokey, that's an excellent question. And there's not a simple answer to that. And Del Conte would say, well, we're all aligned, with Hartsell, the president, and Kevin Eltife, the chairman of the Board of Regents. We're all on the same page. We're all aligned, and I'm sure that's part of it. But you go back to hiring elite coaches and you accompany that Texas brand, and apply it to roster retention, roster recruitment, and then you throw in the transfer portal. They added 10 new transfer portals. Those guys didn't come cheap, and that's one of the reasons this salary is escalating so much. But it's kind of the expectation. I mean, you mentioned 2020 Smoke, and nobody thought Texas was ready for the SEC. I mean, and then Sark comes in, they go 5-7 and have a 6-game losing streak, and they don't get any players drafted. It's like, oh my God, are they going to be competing with Vanderbilt in the cellar? But Sark deserves so much credit, and he's compensated well for that. You just look at what Schlossnagle is doing in baseball already. Mike White, their softball coach, took him a little while, but he's been in the Women's College World Series 2 of the last 3 years and been in the final against Oklahoma. And, Edric Floreal won a track, a women's national championship. Rowing's been number 1. You just go down the list, and it's got to do with expectation. And I think these programs guys feed off of each other. Vic Schaefer he's been to 4 Elite Eights and 1 Final Four, but he's been to a couple Elite Eights, and he looked in the cafeteria one day and like, jeepers, my program's like 8th best in this cafeteria. So, and it's that kind of it's funny, guys. At Sean Miller's introductory press conference, we were talking to Jared Elliott, the volleyball coach who's won 3 national championships. And he's going, man, I better produce or they're going to forget all about me.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of laughed at him like, yeah, he's won 2 of the last 3 years. I think he'll be okay. But the point is made, and it's valid. Like, you got to keep producing if you want to eat. And that's the expectation at Texas. And so far, they're living up to it.
Yeah, sometimes that's been the expectations, but they weren't able to reach them, especially, right. And it all comes down to, we know this, no matter all the others, they've always been well-rounded with Olympians and championships in a lot of the sports, but football is what drives the bus, no question. The animal, the engine. Right. Yep. Hey, Kirk, thank you. Right. Appreciate your time, sir. Appreciate you jumping on, and thanks for your time. We'll get you again here between now and maybe SEC Media Days.
That'd be fun. Pleasure to be with you guys.
Yes, sir. Kirk Bohls of the Houston Chronicle.